everybody, this is Michelle with Creative Operation and Country Craft Creations, and we're going to start working on the tutorial for my Photo Play Travel Junk album. This is a design team project for Country Craft Creations for the month of May 2025. Really excited about how it's turning out. So as you can see, it's not decorated yet, but I do have the cover done, and then what we're going to do is make 4 pages for this album, 2 each of the same design. So I've got one set of pages done, and then we'll do the other one on camera. I'll show you how to put those together, and then we'll go from there. So again, this isn't decorated, but it is the lay flat cover method. So I do have some stuff on here already. Now let's just kind of talk about that. So I apologize, I didn't write this down, but I do have the measurements down below, and I'm going to talk about them on the film for the actual cover. So the album itself is 8.5 by 6.5, and it has a 2.5-inch spine. So for chipboard, you will need 2 pieces of heavyweight chipboard that is 8.5 by 6.5, and then 1 piece for the spine that is 2.5 by 6.5. And then the cardstock that I use to cover is the coffee felt brown artisan cardstock from Country Craft Creations. Now, as I was going kind of through my colors trying to pick, black would also work, craft would also work, and natural would also work really well with this collection, with this paper collection. But I chose the coffee felt brown. It's gorgeous. I love it. And then so I used the coffee felt brown again. So to cover the chipboard, I used 2 pieces that are 10.5 by 8.5. To cover the spine on the outside, I used a piece of the artisan cardstock that is 5.5 by 8.5. And then I used a piece for the inside to cover the spine on the inside that is 6 by 6 3/8. So if you are not familiar with the lay flat method, I do have a video that shows how to do that, but those are the measurements you need to cover this album. And then on the front, and then I'll show you again on the back, this is the back, I got the mirrored Tonic cardstock. Let me grab that paper and show you because it's gorgeous. I got the mirror card Copper Mind from my design team package. So this is available at Country Craft Creations, and it's gorgeous. And again, it's called Copper Mine. So I did use that to help mat the covers front and back. I am going to use that on the spine. We'll talk about that at the end because I don't want to put it on quite yet. So the mirror piece is, you need 2 pieces that are 8.25 by 6.25. And then I did use one for the spine that is 2 3/8 by 6.25. And then the green cardstock here is my colors. It came in my design team package, again listed below for you. 2 pieces that are 8 by 6, and then the pattern paper itself I covered or I used 7 3/4 by 5 3/4. So this came out of 1 piece of paper. You can see I used the map page for the cover. I think it's gorgeous. And I think that mirror card just really, everything just pops. I just love that. So again, we'll talk about the spine in a little bit. Before I laid down the matting for this, I did cut 2 pieces of this gorgeous ribbon. This is the iridescent ribbon. Let me get the name for you again because my mind is blanking right now. It's called the 1.5-inch bespoke crinkle iridescent ribbon. And it is beautiful, you guys. It's gorgeous. So I did cut 2 pieces that were about 14 inches long to pop underneath that matting, and that's what's going to tie this album shut. Okay, so again, check down below. I do have the measurements for all of this listed down below as well. I'll have all the measurements for the cardstock and everything down below as well for the making of the album. And then do check out, if you're not familiar with the lay flat method to make the covers, to make that, or to check out that video because it really does work well and it does lay flat. Okay, it's really pretty. So let me show you this side. Okay, so here's the back of the album. Look how gorgeous. I did take this from the die cuts that I got, the ephemera pack that I got in the design team project. It says, "The world is too big to stay in one place." And I just thought that was a nice way to kind of finish the album on the back side. Again, we'll talk about the spine in a little bit when we're done. And then there's the front. And then I do have a plan for decorating the front. Now on the inside, here is what we have. So I'm going to do kind of a mirrored album. So the front inside covers are going to match, and then we're going to have pages 1 and 3 will match, 2 and 4 will match. So I've already made pages 1 and 2. I'll show you how to make the 2 different styles coming up. So we're going to finish with 3 and 4. I hope that it'll make sense as we go. But the first part, I wanted to do an album that you could not only use as an album, but also have notes on planning, itinerary, things like that. And then I wanted to have space for pockets. So I created a gusseted pocket here for you. And then in that, one of the die cuts is going in here. Or actually it's not a die cut, it's cut apart. So one of the 12 by 12 pages had like weekly planners, to-do lists, all that stuff. I cut them all apart, and we're using those throughout in the pockets that I'm creating for this album. So this one here is the weekly planner. So I just pop that in there, but this is definitely big enough to put photos in because it does measure 7 by 5. So you could definitely put a lot of loose 4 by 6 pictures in here. You could put all kinds of information, notes. You could actually add, it's big enough to where you could add a little notebook in there as well. So that was kind of my plan. So this is not only an album, but also kind of a trip planner as well. So then I used this beautiful ribbon that came in my design team package to close that. So I did receive the wide ribbon. I received this ribbon. I got some twine, and I also received some seam binding. I did add extra seam binding. So I did go through my Country Craft Creation seam binding stash, and I got the chocolate brown, and I did use this in a couple different places too, because quite frankly, I used it all. I ran out, so I needed more. So there you go. So we're going to create that on this side. So we'll do that in just a little bit. What I want to do first is put the pages in, and then we'll do that. Let's talk about the pages. I'm going to get this out of the way, and then let's talk about our pages. So like I said, we're going to make 2 different pages, and I've got 2 already made up, and then we're going to make the next set together. So these pages all together are 8 inches by 5 3/4, and they feature all kinds of different things, some pockets and everything else. This one, the first page, page 1 and page 3 are going to match, and they have a top loading pocket. We also have a pocket here, and then what I wanted to do was make a place to use this. For some reason, I could not get file folder out of my head. We had these tabs in the ephemera pack. There were 2 of them. One says packing list, and the other one says, what does the other one say? I forget what it says. My brain. Travel notes. And so I had like this file folder idea in my head. And then also with this particular collection, one of the pages had a bunch of different, it had a 12 by 12 page of different little bits and pieces, tickets, postcards, whatnot. And so my idea was to have a paper clip some of the ephemera pieces that I cut out of that 12 by 12 page and clip them onto the file folder. Okay. And then you have more places on the inside here. And then I clipped a couple on the inside here, but you also have room for photos. This can hold loose notes, and then it just tucks into the pocket like that. So that's what I ended up using, the yellow cardstock that I got from the design team package, and I used that for that. Now, again, I still haven't finished decorating because this is kind of just the first stage of the album making. So there will, and you have already seen a walkthrough video, and you'll see all the other decorations, but this is what I've got so far. So pages 1 and 3 feature a top-loading pocket that is the full length of this page, full length and width. And then in the pattern papers, they had a top section of 6 by 6 pieces that I cut out, and then I used my envelope tab punch to punch those. So basically all that I did with that, and I'll tell you that, is take those 2 6 by 6 pieces, and I cut them out. And then what I did was I lined it up at the midline and punched. And then I moved it over to 3 inches. I lined it up at 3 inches and punched. Okay, so that gave that little tab. And then I just cut that piece out to create the file folder shape. Okay, so again, just put it at the edge centered in your envelope punch board and punch, and then at 3 inches and punched. Okay, made it pretty easy peasy to do that. And then inked it and everything. So I did use ink, and I did use the, let me show you, Catherine Pooler icing on the cake. Catherine Pooler inks are available at Country Craft Creations, and I'll put a link to those as well down below. Okay, so right now that's what's in the top pocket, and that just pops in right there. Okay, so then that's the front of page 1. The back of page 1, we are going to use some of the extra seam binding that I got from my stash, and we're going to have these flaps. Okay, so these will have, one side will have some pattern paper, some more of the green cardstock matting, and a cut apart, and then we have 3 photo opportunities on the flaps, and then you've got the page down below. Okay, so that is page 1, front and back. And super easy peasy to put together, but has a lot of opportunities for photos. And then I like the fact that we have lots of pockets, so that makes it really easy to add things to it. Okay, and then page 2, here is the front of page 2. So what I ended up doing with page 2, which will be mirrored in page 4, we'll do the same thing in page 4. We have a side loading pocket on this one, and then we have on the front another big pocket, and then we have a waterfall. Okay, so because I have to have a waterfall, right? So this is a big one. It will hold multiple 3x4 pictures, so we got lots of that. And then another opportunity back here. I left these plain because there are 8 pages, and I wanted to make sure that when you get your pictures in there, it is going to bulk up, so I didn't want to put too many pattern papers down to avoid that. But then I did use, you know, some strips in between so that you can kind of break up the pictures, and then I put that little piece of paper there. So then that just ties with some of the seam binding that I did get in my design team package, this beautiful ivory here. Is it ivory? I can't remember the name. Let me double check. Let me double check. It's listed below. Nude. It's nude. Okay. So then I wanted to create a pocket here because the pattern paper also had a sheet of 12 by 12 that had nothing but tags. So you had 2 different sizes. You had these taller tags, and then you had kind of some half-size tags. I haven't used those yet, but those are going to be in the decorating. So what I did was I fussy cut out all of those, inked them, and then I used a circle punch. So I used a 5/8 inch, just a plain old circle punch, and I punched out of the mirror card, and I put that on. There was a white area on here that was supposed to be kind of the hole of the tag. So I put that over that, and then punched a hole with my 3/8 inch side of my crocodile. And then I put seam binding through, and then I used the twine to tie a bow around it. Okay. So then I did in each of those 2 front pages that we're going to do, there are going to be 2 with the nude, 2 with the brown. And then I had some left over from the cover that I used for one of them. So each pocket on the front of page 2 and the front of page 4 will have 5 of these tags in there, and they're fun to add. So they not only give a decorative element here, but they also give you another place to, you know, you could journal on the back of that. You could add little pictures to the back, dates, whatever you want. But I just thought that was really pretty. So that's the front. And then again, side loading pocket. This is another one of those cut aparts that were on the 12 by 12 pages. So that'll go inside here. And then when we turn it over, we have a belly band with flaps. So again, more picture opportunity. And again, I'm still in the decorating phase, or going to be in the decorating phase here pretty quick. This is kind of the design phase. And then underneath of that, and this is offset, and I did that offset because I really wanted that word to stick out from the paper that I cut out. So if you don't want it offset, you totally don't have to do that. But that's why I did it, because I really wanted that journey to show once you take the piece out. This is brown cardstock that came in the design team package. This is a My Colors cardstock, and I just made a booklet. And so far, that's what that looks like. And I did use the mirror on it, so it looks like it's like a greeting card, kind of. But you can use it as a photo booklet as well, okay? So, again, that just tucks underneath here. And that is the back of page 2, which will be the same as back of page 4. Okay, so that's just kind of a real quick of what we're going to be doing. And then, so let's get started with the page. It's the pages itself. Okay, so let me get some stuff out of the way. And then we'll get page 1 out here so we can look at it while we make it. Okay, so right now we're going to make the top loading pocket. This is page 1. This one here will be page 3. Okay, so it'll be top loading, top loading, side loading. All right, so we need a couple pieces, 14 inches of seam binding. And again, this is extra that I pulled from my Country Craft Creations stash. And then these are all the pieces that you will need. And this again is for pages 1 and 3. So in total, you will need for pockets, you will need 2 pieces that are 9 by 2 3/4. So 1 for each page. File folders, that again is out of the yellow artisan card, or the My Colors cardstock, excuse me, that I got in the design team package. 2 of those that are 10 3/4 by 7 1/2. You will need flaps, 4 that are 3 7/8 by 5 1/2. And then you will need mats that is out of the craft My Colors cardstock that came in my design team package. That's what I used for that. 6 that are 3 3/4 by 4 7/8. Okay, so that's in total. That will make pages 1 and 3. Now the base page, those are the pieces. The base page itself, which looks like I totally failed to write down, will be 9 1/4 by 11 1/2. Okay, 9 1/4 by 11 1/2 tall. Okay, so what you're going to do is get your scoreboard. Let's put this guy over here, and we're going to put it with the 9 1/4 at the top. We're going to score at 1/2 and at 3/4. Then you're going to scooch on over to 8 3/4, and we're going to score there. Okay, so 1/2, 3/4, 8 3/4, and then we're going to turn it, and we're going to score at 5 3/4. Okay, then get this out of the way and grab our scissors and do a little bit of trimming. So this top section here is going to be the binding section. So this has the 1/2 inch and the 1/4 inch areas that we've scored. So what we're going to do is we're going to go that midline, and we're just going to cut right up that score line straight. Okay, this piece here is going to end up helping to create the pocket. So we're going to miter that just through both of those score lines, like so. Okay, and then over here, this is going to again help make the pocket. So we're going to have to cut this top part out and then miter this. So we'll go ahead and miter, and we'll miter, and then we're going to cut this straight up. Let's cut that out. I probably should have grabbed my bigger scissors. That's okay. I hope you all are doing well. I'm filming this on Memorial Day. It's in the morning, just after 9 o'clock, and we live next to a cemetery, and they had a ceremony this morning, and we just had a an Air Force fighter jet flyby, which was really cool. We went out and watched that. That was very neat. Okay, so we have this out, tabbed, and then this one, do not miter, okay, because that's the spine that's going to adhere to the book. Okay, so let's go ahead and fold and burnish and make sure all of our edges line up. Okay, we'll fold our little mitered tabs to the inside. Oh, I didn't need to do that. You only have to do it once because that's going to glue to the inside. Silly me. this is the binding. That one we do need to burnish both of the score lines, but the one that we mitered, we don't need to, because that's just going to glue down into the pocket anyway, okay? And we want that one straight, okay? So if we look at it, this is going to be the front of the page, and then this will fold to the back, and then that's what's going to create the pocket. Now, before we make the pocket of the page, we need to attach our seam binding, okay? So what I'm going to do is I'm going to open this up and then grab my ruler. I'm going to use my ruler. I'm going to center here, and it's going to center at 2 7/8, and I'm going to put a little seam binding on the inside of this pocket, okay? On both sides. And don't worry if it goes past like a 1/2 inch, because we're going to use some of our magic clear tape and work that out, okay? So we're going to put our seam binding here. We'll go ahead and center that again. Seam binding is a 1/2 inch wide, so that makes it pretty easy, okay? Put a little bit there. And then we're going to grab this one here. And again, I cut these about 14 inches. Gives me a little bit of length if you want to tie knots, that kind of thing. We're going to put that there. And then I'm going to put, just because I do this a lot, I'm going to put a little bit of tape right towards the side. So you can see this is where that's going to fold over, and then that's going to secure that seam binding, okay? And then what I'm going to do is, before I glue it down, I'm going to grab some of my clear tape here, and I'm just going to put over the edge of that seam binding. And then what that's going to do is not only secure it, but it's also going to help so when our papers go in and out of that pocket, they won't get hung up on that little piece of seam binding, okay? That one, let's see if I can cut that off, just because it bothers me. Not necessary, I guess, but I'm just covering the end of that seam binding, okay? All right, then take that score tape off. We're going to glue all of that down, okay? So getting my art glitter glue here. And let's do this too. Okay. So I'm doing it this way because I don't want my seam binding pulling on my pattern paper. If I put it into the seam of my cardstock here, like I'm doing, the seam binding will actually be more secured against the cardstock, okay? So now what we have is our pocket, our top loading pocket. Here's the front, and then the seam binding will go to the back. Again, the back of the page will have those flaps, okay? So then let's go back to the front real quick, and we'll get our pocket. And I did already cut those, and I'm not really sure why I did that, but let's talk about this. So this pocket is 9 by 2 3/4. So you're going to put it with the 9 at the top. You're going to score it half and at 8 1/2, and then go ahead and turn it and score at half, okay? And then you're going to miter your pocket. So then we just are going to fold and burnish our pocket pieces. This has kind of a longer piece to fold and burnish, so start in the middle and work your way out. Makes for a straighter burnishing, okay? So here's our pocket, and this is just going to go on the front like so. We are going to do the tape trick down here, just because it really does ensure everything. And then I also I want to show you how I'm going to cover this pocket with the pattern paper. I got that all ready to go. Okay, so make sure that's just right to the bottom of the page. Burnish that down. Grab your tape. If you don't stick it to yourself, it works really well. Which I just stuck it to everything. Okay, do over. Let's grab some more tape here. Oh, sorry about that. Okay. All right. I'm cracking myself up. I just stuck the tape all over myself and had to get another piece. Okay. Ay, ay, ay. Okay, so I'm just covering that tab. Help with our inserts, okay? And then those will fold up and then just glue, okay? All right. All right. Easy peasy lemon squeezy. And then real quick, I want to show you. So the photo play, I only had 12 pieces of paper, and I had several pieces that I actually wanted to use as cut aparts. So I had to kind of be a little creative with my paper cutting. So on this particular piece, this was cut out of the, let's see, how did I do that? So I had 2 pieces of this particular paper. So I wanted to, the way this paper was laid out, it had a really pretty bottom section and then it had a really pretty top section. So I was trying really hard to kind of conserve as much as I could, because I had to use both pieces of, you know, I had 2 of each of these. It was kind of like this, okay, if you look at it as a whole 12 by 12 piece of paper. So I used the bottom portion here and a top portion up here. And what I ended up doing was I cut a section, and let me measure this for you because I want you to know exactly how I did it. So it went like this. If you put it together, you know, that was in continuity. So I cut it at 7 7/8, and then I cut it at 5 5/8. I cut the bottom portion at 2 1/8 to cover the pocket, and the rest of it is going to go just in the pocket. I mean, like, it actually just barely goes in the pocket when I glue it down, okay? And the reason why I did that is I wanted to kind of have it look like it was one piece of paper when you took everything out, okay? So that's how I did both pieces. And it looks like the same piece of paper that we just basically we just kind of cut a slit, and it looks like one piece once you get it on the pocket. So that's how I did that. I'm not going to go ahead and glue that down right now. I'll just go ahead and wait, but I'll pop that in there. But I wanted to show you that's how I did that, okay? And then to finish this piece, you have your file folder. So again, this was 7 1/2 by 10 3/4, and you're going to score it at 5 1/4. All right, you guys. So I, gave you the right measurements, I think. So we're going to use this yellow cardstock to make the file folders. We're going to cut it at 7 1/2 by 10 3/4, and then what you're going to do is put it in your scoreboard, and you're going to score it at 5 1/4. So when you do that, you're going to get the file folder shape. Now, I want you to see that I did not pay attention to the branding strip on the back. And then I went back because I was like, oh my gosh, did I do it to both of them? And I did. I had, and I don't know if anybody noticed it, you can go back. I didn't notice it till just now that I had little tiny bit of the branding strip right there, and I never even saw it, even with all the videoing I'm doing today. So I went back and fixed it, and I thought, well, I'm going to show you how I'm going to fix this, because that is just kind of really goofy that I did it. So when you fold this folder up, I wanted a little edge up here. So what I'm going to do is I went through my scraps, and I had these 2 little strips that I'm just going to cover that up, okay? So what I'm going to do is I used my corner punch on the file folder, so I'm going to punch this, okay, all 4 corners, okay? And you can use any corner punch you want, it can be decorative or just round or whatever you want. So then I'm just going to cover that up, okay? So I just took this strip, cut it at 7 1/2, and it's 5/8 inch wide, and that's just how the scraps worked out. And I'm just going to cover that up. But if you don't want to cover this up, okay, so it is decorative, okay? We can call it a decorative element. But if you don't want to do that and you want to actually pay attention to where your branding strips are when you cut your paper, I would suggest doing that. Oh my gosh. But that's how you can fix it. I mean, that's easy peasy. And as long as you guys don't tell anybody, I don't think anybody's going to know. they might think I planned it that way. So, you know, hey, there's a bonus. So you can either glue this on first and then punch your corners, or do it like I did it, and I might have to repunch my corner, but that's okay. And then just scooch that up to the top, and then that covers up the branding strip, and voila, we have saved the day. So yeah, I am gonna have to punch that corner just a little bit. There we go. And then voila, it's fixed. So let's just dab that corner just gently. And then there you go. Okay. So that's how you make the file folder. And then I'm going to go ahead and use the little tab, and we'll just tape that on there. So basically what I ended up doing was I put it on my grid. I lined it up with one of my grid marks here. And I just put it 1/2 inch in. Okay. So I'm going to put it, and you can do it on the opposite side if you want, or you can put it on the same side. Doesn't matter, whatever you want. But I'm going to just do it on the same side as I did on the first one, and then just glue that bottom portion there. So I did back these die cuts with a little bit of pattern paper because they were a little on the thin side. And I thought, well, if people are going to be using this as a pull tab, I want to make sure that it's, you know, a little bit more sturdy. So I did use a little piece of scrap to do that. All right, so there's your file folder. And then I picked out a couple of sets of ephemera that I'm going to clip. So here are these cut apart pieces that I got off of the 12 by 12 paper. Okay, so I'm just going to tuck those in there as a little decorative element. And then this one here, I'll put on the inside here. And this one was cute. It had a little book. You could do journaling here. And then your tickets, okay? So I'm just going to pop those in there like that. And then that is going to go into the pocket on the front of page 3, okay? So I'll put this off to the side for now. Oops, bending my ephemera piece. And then let's work on the back of this page. This one's really easy. So all you need, the back of page 1 and 3 are going to have the flaps. Okay, so let's get this out of the way. We already cut the flaps, so these are 4 by 5.5. On the 5.5 side, we're going to score it 1/2. Okay, so just take your scoreboard, 5.5 at the top, and then we'll just score it 1/2. Okay, do that to both of those. I'll get this out of the way too. Okay, and then we're going to miter those like so. Miter this like so, and then burnish. And then grab your book. All right. Or your page, I should say. So again, this is the back of page 3, same as the back of page 1. We're going to glue these to the top. We're going to glue them to the side, just to the side of the page pocket there, and have a little gap in between so they don't fight with each other. Okay. So then a little bit of glue. I'm going to turn this so I can see it. And I'm just going to put it right just to the edge of the page. Okay, they'll open to the top. Okay, this one will go on the other side. Ay, ay, ay. I worked on this all day yesterday, trying to get it all prepped and ready to go. Rewrote my notes, re-looked at everything. Can't believe, I mean, you know, you still can make a boo-boo. And I don't have any more of that yellow paper, so I can't redo it. There you go. So those will be that. I do have my craft mats already cut out to go on this page and then on the underside. Okay. And then I also have my paper to cover this. And then I have my mat, and then this is one of the cut apart pieces that I cut out. So again, the mat, well, the card is 3x4. I trimmed it to 3x4, and then this is 3¼ by 4¼ okay? And then that will cover that. And then I do have my piece of paper that will go underneath on the page. So this is 7 7/8 by 5 5/8, okay? So that will go underneath the flaps like so, okay? So that's where all of that is going. So I'm going to kind of take this apart, put it back off to the side, and then I will put those on after I get these in the book. Here is the cut apart piece that I made into another tab, and then that will go in, if I can get my fingers to work, because now I'm all twittered, into the top pocket here, okay? So there you have it. Okay, so I'll glue all this down later, okay? So there's that. And then let's go on to page 2 and 4. So if we look at page 2 and 4, this is the one with the front pocket, and then we have the waterfall, and then we will have the belly band with the flaps. Okay, this is pretty easy to do. So we're going to grab our scoreboard, and again, this is page 2 and 4 is how you make this one. 8 3/4 by 12. We're going to score on the 8 3/4 at 1/2, at 3/4, and then we're going to turn. Okay, so turn it so your scores are on the bottom now. Score at 5 3/4 and 11.5. Okay. So this is going to make a side pocket. So we need the tab here so that we can create the side opening pocket. So on this one, we're going to do it a little bit different. This top section is going to be the tab that helps create the pocket. And this is going to be what binds everything. So what we're going to do, again, is cut up that middle score all the way up, but we're going to miter the top part this time. Okay. And the only reason I'm doing that is so that the kind of where the pages fold and bend and everything will be at the bottom of the page. They won't be at the top of the page, okay? So it'll just have a nice smooth edge. So we're gonna miter those top sections. We're gonna leave this flat. That's what's going to glue into the book. So we're gonna cut straight, and then we're gonna miter this bottom tab and here and here, okay? So get this out of the way. We're going to fold and burnish. So this is going to go like so. Okay, so the mitered piece there will fold like that. Page will fold over like so. Okay, then this piece will do this. Okay, so this is how this is going to glue together. And then we will have, this is the fold is at the top. So the seam here is at the bottom, and then here is our binding piece. So we have to fold and burnish that as well. I hope this makes sense. I don't know why I'm so twittered today. Okay. So first things first is I'm going to put a piece of tape just at the bottom here on the inside so that when we glue this all together, that seam will end up being covered. So I'm going to open that piece that we folded over. I'm going to put the tape right there so that when we glue everything down, that tape will cover that tab, okay? And then we're going to put glue here. And then that way, if we put anything in the pocket, then at the bottom, it won't get hung up, okay? Or when we put stuff in the pocket. Okay, we're going to just do that. Okay, pocket done. All right, so here's the front of the page. We have our side pocket. Again, this is the front designed for pages 2, or yeah, 2 and 4. Okay, so let's work on the front piece. So we are going to need some seam binding that we're going to attach before we do the pocket. Okay, so 2 pieces that are 14 inches. This is the nude that I got in the design team package. We will need pockets, 2 in total. So 1 for page 2, 1 for page 4 that are 9 by 5.5, and then we'll need our waterfalls. So again, 2 total, but 1 for each of the pages. 9 3/4 by 4 1/8, 8 3/4 by 4 1/8, 7 3/4 by 4 1/8, and then 6 3/4 by 4 1/8. Okay, so let's grab. First things first is we're going to work on our pocket. So let me organize just a wee bit. First thing we're going to do is add our seam binding to our page. And when I did this, I wanted it to end up being in the middle of the waterfall. So when we put it down, we're going to measure it so that it lines up at 2 1/4 inches from the bottom. Okay, and that's where the seam binding will start. Okay, 2 1/4 inches from the bottom. So I'm going to go to the bottom of my page where my seam is, and see how I can see this better. And I'm going to go 2 1/4 inches up. Let's see here. Use my centering ruler here. I'm going to put a little bit of seam binding. Probably, let's see, 2 1/4. So I'm going to line it up kind of more 2 1/2. So when I put this down, I want to make sure that the bottom of the seam binding is at 2 1/4. Okay, like that. Okay, that's going to go under the pocket. So again, I will secure a little bit here because my 1/2 inch tab for my pocket is going to go over that, and then I'm going to put a little bit more tape over the top of that. I'm going to put paper down in there, but I'm going to just kind of keep going with the flow here. Okay, so again, I'm going to line it up. I'm putting the 0 at the bottom of my pocket. I'm going to put the score tape at like 2 1/2 inches. Okay, and then I'm going to take my seam binding and I'm going to line the bottom of that seam binding at 2 1/4. Okay, and that should line everything up perfectly to be in the center of your waterfall. Okay. And again, I'm going to put this on the edge, which is going to go under the pocket. Okay. And then a little bit more tape. Right, yeah. Oops. Let's go ahead and trim that. Okay. Okay. Like so. Okay. Next step is make our pocket. Nine by 5.5. We're going to put it with a 9 at the top. We're going to score it half. At 8.5, turn it, score at half. Miter fold burnish. Okay, I'm going to put glue on the bottom tab only because we are going to do the tape trick, because I just remembered that the paper is not going to go all the way into the pocket because I was conserving my paper because I didn't have a lot and I really wanted to use the cut aparts. Okay, and I'll show you that in just a second. So I'm just lining this up, edge of the page, the bottom. Okay, my pocket. We're going to put tape. Not stick it to myself this side, and I didn't get it long enough. So you can always grab another piece of tape. Okay, like so. Seam binding pieces off, and then glue the side pocket up. All right, like so. There we go. That's a little bit more better. Okay, so we have our pocket on. Now, the next thing we need to do is the waterfall is going to be glued onto this top of the pocket, so we have to cover it with pattern paper first. So let's talk about the pattern paper here real quick. So again, I tried to do the in continuity thing with the pattern paper. So what I ended up doing, and I did it for both of the front of page 2 and the front of page 4, is that I cut a piece of pattern paper that is 7 7/8 by 6. All right. So in order to cover the front pocket, the pocket is 5 inches. So I cut the bottom piece of that at 4 7/8 inch, and then I use the remaining piece to tuck in the pocket. This will go under the pocket a little bit more than the other one that we did, okay? But that's how I was able to cover both of these pages with one piece of 12 by 12 on the front, okay? So I'm gonna hold this off to the side for a second. We're gonna put this one on for sure. Now I did ink everything, and that's just gonna lay down on the pocket. So let's just go ahead and do that. Put glue on the back of this. Okay, and then that'll cover the pocket, and then we can go ahead and do our waterfall and get that on there, okay? But we have to get that pattern paper on first. Okay, so then let's talk waterfalls. Let's grab those pieces. So you should have 4 pieces of paper for each of these. This will give you 8 pages. So with each of them, you have, they're all 4 1/8 inch wide. You have a 9 3/4, 8 3/4, 7 3/4, and a 6 3/4 piece. All of them are going to be scored exactly the same. So you're going to put them with the long side at the top, and you're going to score at 3 1/8. Then you're going to turn it over and score at 3 1/8. You're going to do that with all of your pieces, okay? So with the 8 3/4, with the 7 3/4, again, 3 1/8, and then turn it and score at 3 1/8, okay? These are my stacked waterfalls. I do have a very comprehensive video on these that I'll link below as well. This is the 6 3/4, 3 1/8, turn it, 3 1/8, okay? So all of those done the same way. And then take this out. And then I'm going to use my grid for this, for lining them up. So I'm just going to fold and burnish all of my scores. Okay. Make sure everything lines up. Everything should line up pretty darn perfectly. I love this method of doing it. Now, I've done several methods of laying these down. You can use your 1/2 inch spacers to guide you. You can use your scoreboard. You can use mats. Whichever method works for you. I use all of the methods. It just depends on my mood for the day. So once you get all these lined up, then get them in order. So you have a wide base here, and then get your next wide, next wide, next wide. Okay, so stack them kind of backwards. And you're going to lay this on your grid. And I'm going to line up those scores on a black line that I can see really well. And then, you know, down below I have a really nice grid here. So what I'm going to do is take the next size. I'm going to fold that first page over. I'm going to glue the spine piece, this middle area here. And then I'm going to do it 1/2 inch in from the score here. So this score is lined up the black line. There's a 1/2 inch here. I'm just going to do that. Use my grid to help me, and then just match my edges and lay that down, okay? And that is 1 page down. I find this method of making my waterfalls so much easier and so much better, quicker, and they stay straight, which is nice, okay? So then I'm just going to repeat the process. So now my 1/2 inch score is moved over a little bit. It's on the next line. So I'm going to fold that first page over. Going to glue this spine. You just have to also remember to make sure you go through and don't put, just make sure you go through when you lay this down and make sure your glue isn't seeping out where you don't want it, okay? Okay, because you don't want your pages glued together, okay? So we should be now moved over another 1/2 inch. It should line up right on that next line. Last page, we're going to fold that over. We just have a 1/2 inch spine now. Okay, everything's still lined up. I'm going to go to the 1/2 inch. There we go. And voila, you have a waterfall. Perfectly placed, perfectly aligned. You only had to do 4 gluings instead of like 8, and then hope that everything matches up. And look how perfect that is. I mean, it's such an amazing way to do it. So then grab your book, and then we're just going to center that right there. Now, when I centered this, let me double check here. I want to make sure that I get this right for you. So we're going to go in 5/8 inch from the pattern paper edge and 3/8 inch up from the pattern paper edge. Okay, so 5/8 and then 3/8, and that's how we're going to line this up, and that will center everything perfectly. Okay, so again, here is my waterfall. Here's the spine of my waterfall. That's the only thing you want to glue. So we're going to put glue here. Okay, so 5/8 inch in from the pattern paper that we laid down, 3/8 inch up, and that will center that. Lay that down. Okay, and then we're going to flip all this over ever so gently, and there you go. That is the waterfall. Okay, all right, there we go. This will now tie over our waterfall. And voila. Okay, so again, I will glue this in later, but we're going to have that top part of the pocket here that I need to glue in. I do have a piece of pattern paper that I cut for the front. It is 3 by 4, and then I have all my little bits for the spines on the inside. Okay, so we'll put that off to the side. I also have one of these cut aparts that was from the 12 by 12 paper that I cut out, and I edge punched, I inked, and then I added a little bit of seam binding, and that's going to go into the side pocket like so. Okay, so that's where that is going to go. Okay, so I'm going to untie that because it's going to be bulky on the back. We're going to turn it over. We're going to work on the back of page 4, which is the same as the back of page 2. We're going to do the belly band with the flaps. Okay, so let me grab those pieces. Here we will need a couple things. We are going to need some twine, and we're going to need a belly band, 2 pieces in total, 6 3/4 by 3 1/2. Flaps, 4 in total, so 2 for each page, 3 3/4 by 4 1/4, and then we need our insert. There's 2 of those that are 7 by 10, and those are made out of the extra brown My Colors cardstock that I got in my design team package. Okay, so this is for the back of page 2 and 4, and I've got all my pieces here. For that, where is my, there it is, my belly band and my pages. So, get myself organized here. Put that off to the side here. Let's get the scoring done. Ooh, hello. Okay, let's get the scoring done first. So we first have our belly band. Our belly band is 6 3/4 by 3 1/2. We're going to score at half and at 6 1/4. Easy peasy. We have 2 flaps. They're both the same. 3 3/4 by 4 1/4. Score at 1/2. Okay, that's it. So 2 of those and then the belly band. Then to put this all together, we're going to miter, fold, and burnish. Okay, so I've got everything folded and burnished. Then what we're going to do is we're going to grab our centering ruler. We need to place our twine. Okay, so centering this is at 2 7/8 is the center. We're going to need our score tape. 2 7/8 is the center. Okay, there we go. And then we're going to place our twine. And I did cut, again, 2 pieces that were about 14 inches long. And then if I use my grid, then I can kind of gauge using my grid where the center is, like that. I lined up my grid on my grid where 2 7/8 would be from the center, and then that's how I did that. So again, another way to do it. This is going to get covered up with pattern paper and such, and then the actual pages of our booklet. Okay, so we're going to put, the next thing we're going to do is put these pages on. And then what I ended up doing was I kind of offset them. You can see. So I went 3/8 inch down from the top. Okay, and then that's how I set these. So 3/8 inch down from the top and then 3/8 inch off the bottom. And that kind of just offset them a little bit, showed paper underneath, a little more decorative. So just 3/8 inch down. And I could have used my grid for that too. Didn't really need my ruler. You can see how my brain thinks sometimes. Not so awful good. I should have taken that off real quick. But actually, I'm going to fold that over. Okay. So 3/8 inch up from the bottom. Yikes, you guys. You're seeing me in all my glory today. Yikes. So I'm going to just use my grid. And I'm going to go 3/8 inch up from the bottom. Like so. Lay that down. Okay. Okay, now what we can do is grab that piece of paper that we are going to put over top of that. And that's going to cover all of that business up. So I am going to go ahead and just lightly ink my edges. I did distress this one because of the, nature of the papers and the darker papers that I used. Now, if I would have used like maybe natural artisan cardstock, I might not have done a lot of distressing, but since I'm using brown, I thought it needed it. So that's going to go over here, and then we can cover up that score tape and get that all secured like so. All right. Okay, so that's the inside of this, and then it'll cover like that and like that. And I do have my pattern papers cut out for that I will put on later, but those will go here and here. Okay, and then you can see how it's going to peek out and it'll look really pretty. Okay, so I'm going to put those off to the side for a sec. We'll go ahead and tie this around for now to get it kind of out of the way a little bit. And then we're going to get our page and we will put that on the page. Now, since I did kind of do this off center, I'm going to do it again on this one. So let's measure in and see how far I did it. I did it at about 1.25 inches. So we're going to measure in 1.25 inches, and that's where we're going to lay that down. So I'm going to put glue on the top here real quick. And then I'm just going to turn this to the side. I'm going to use the grid on my mat here. I'm going to line that up and 1.25 inches in and lay that down. Okay. Glue on this one, and then we'll just lay that down. Like so. Okay, there's that. So I do have my piece of paper that is going to go underneath all of this. So I will glue that on again, like I said, later, so you don't have to watch. But that will just slide in here. I cut my papers 1/8 of an inch smaller, and I do need to still ink that one too. So anyways, that's how that's going to look. All right, so this is the back of page 2 and 4, okay? And then for the insert that I put in here, again, this is the brown artisan cardstock that came in my design team package. So I just cut a piece that is 10 by 7. On the 10, I scored it 5. So it became a 5 by 7 card. And then for the gold, I did 6 7/8 by 4 7/8. And then the pattern paper is 6 5/8 by 4 5/8. And so that will cover that. So then again, more decoration can happen, but that's kind of the initial idea of that. And then this insert will go underneath that belly band like so, and it'll be really pretty. That mirror card will be just gorgeous. Okay, so that is page 4. That's the back of page 4. Okay, so now what we have to do is put them in the book. We're going to start layering our pages into our book. I'm using the L-hinge binding, so the 1/2 inch pieces that we have sticking out of our pages, that's going to adhere to the book, and then we have a 1/4 inch give space to kind of take up some slack from all of the fun additions we added to our page and kind of make our pages turn better, give a little bit more room. Okay, so then when I covered the inside spine, I did cut this at 2.5 inches wide. The spine is 2.5 inches wide, but once you get all the pattern paper on and everything, it actually kind of widens out just a wee bit. So I used the pattern paper 2.5 inches. And what we're going to do is, because we have top pockets and you might have some things sticking out of your pockets that might be a little bit bigger, we're going to actually not really center it. We're going to move it down a little bit to give a little bit more room at the top for all of those things that you might want to put in the top pockets. Okay, so I'm going to take my ruler. We're going to measure in from the pattern paper edge. Okay, so we're looking at the pattern paper edge, and we're going to measure in 1/2 inch and start layering them down, but we're going to measure 1/4 inch up, and then that will give a little bit more room up at the top. It'll give about 1/2 inch of room. That'll just give it a little bit more space for things you might want to add to your pocket. That's just what I'm going to do. So if you don't want to do that, that's fine. You can totally center it. But I'm going to do that. Okay, so glue on that 1/2 inch piece only. This is page 1. So again, I'm kind of fighting with my pocket here, which is one of the reasons why I didn't want to do the accordion pocket on the back yet. And I'm trying to make sure this is nice and straight. And I'm still fighting with my pocket. There we go. Yeah, I want it right just to the edge there. Okay. All right. And then I'm going to take my page and 1/2 inch in, 1/4 inch up, lay that down, okay? That's the first page down. Just be very careful. Okay, and lay that down. Should be nice and straight and beautiful, okay? Once you get that first one laid down, you do not have to measure anymore because we're just going to go to the side of that, okay? So we have page 2. So this is the one that's already finished, and we are just going to lay that down right next to that one, like so, okay? So we're going to put glue on that 1/2 inch tab. It's a little bit harder to do with all of the stuff on it and all the pattern papers on it. But because I didn't have like a lot of this paper, I had to kind of try and like decorate some of it as I was going, so I made sure I had enough. It was quite a process. So I'm just laying that down, kind of finger pressing that part down, let the glue kind of get a chance to stick. Okay, like so. Okay, second page down. All right, so then we made our page 3, which is the same as page 1 with the pocket, and it's going to have the file folder in it, right? So again, fold that over. The last page is glued on different, so don't get carried away yet. And I explain it in every video because I want to make sure everybody understands that's why I do it the way I do it. So this one, again, just butts up right against there, just like we have been doing. We're just going to lay that down right up against that score, or right up against that tab. Okay, make sure. I got to glue those down yet. We talked about that. All right. Okay. Okay, now we're going to do the next one different. I have pattern paper showing here. I want to make sure I have pattern paper showing here. If I keep gluing it down, I'm going to cover that pattern paper up, right? So what I want to do this time is I'm going to fold that back to the other side, okay? Because what I'm going to do is I'm going to glue it to the top of that piece that I just laid down, so that when I turn my page, I have my pattern paper showing, okay? And it'll look really finished and absolutely beautiful. So just make sure you get the correct side of that tab, okay? So this one's just basically opposite of what we've been doing. And we're going to glue it right on top of that tab of the page we just laid down, okay? Right to the score. Don't go into that score because we want to make sure our pages turn right. Okay. And lay that down, okay? I will go through my scraps. I have not done that yet to pick my pattern papers for the spines, you know, for the page pieces, the gussets. Yeah, that's the word I'm looking for. But I will do that. But you have already seen that because you've seen the walkthrough video. So there you go, okay? So there is our pages in our book, okay? 2 and 4 are the same. So there's the front and the back. We've got the give space, which is really nice for helping the pages turn and helping with some of the bulk of the additions that we put on our book. Okay, so now what we need to do is make the pocket for this, and then we're done. So the accordion pocket is easy peasy. You will need some pieces for the closure. So I used this beautiful ribbon here, this 1/8 inch ribbon that I got in my design team package. So this is 1/8 inch, and it's gorgeous, and my pen mark got erased, but this is, you need 2 pieces for the main accordion pocket that are 8 by 6.5. And let me see, where's my pen? Write that down. Of course it got erased, right? I'm trying to film. And then we have 2 pieces that we need that are 10 by 5. So one for each of the accordion pockets, okay? So let's go ahead. I've got the pattern papers all ready to go. Grab our scoreboard. Let's do some scoring. All right, so the first piece, 8 by 6.5. We are going to put it with the 8 at the top. We're going to score, and there's a reason for this, at half, 1.5, 6.5, 7.5. And then you're going to turn it upside down. So you want to keep the sides on the same side. Score again at 1, score at 7. So your score marks are going opposite of each other. This is going to make this pocket work much better. Trust me on this one, okay? So we have all together half, 1, 1.5, okay? 6.5, 7, 7.5, okay? And they're opposite of each other, okay? So we started with half, 1.5, 6.5, 7.5, and then we turned it over, score at 1 and 7, okay? Then on the other side, one side, on the 6.5 inch side, we're going to do kind of the same thing. We're going to score at 5, 6, and then we're going to turn it over. So those same scores are on the same side. We're going to score at 5.5. Okay. Again, opposite of each other. Okay. So then take your 10 by 5 inch piece, put it in your scoreboard, score at 2 7/8 and at 3. Okay. 2 7/8 and at 3. Get this out of the way. We will start with this guy. So what you're going to do is you're going to cut first. Let's cut these 2 corners out that have the 9 little squares that we created with all of those scores. Okay. I'm going to cut those out. Just cut them straight at this point. Okay. And I am cutting on the side of the score line to kind of cut those scores out. Like so, okay? So those are just totally gone. 2 top 1/2 inch, we're gonna miter those. Like so. Leave the other 2 flat, okay? And then down here, we're gonna miter the bottom one, like so. Okay, we're done with that. We're going to do a couple more snips to make the bottom of the pocket, and it's going to turn out perfect. Okay, so what we're going to do is we're going to turn this over, and we're going to accordion fold. And this is why you want your scores opposite of each other. If you do them opposite of each other, they tend to fold so much nicer, so much cleaner, and absolutely like straight. Like you don't have to do a whole lot of nudging to try to get them to fit. So that's really important to score that way when you're trying to do like accordion folds. And I do that with my projects that I do like rosettes and things like that. It's just really super important. So then we have the bottom. Let's open this up. Let's do the same thing with the bottom. So again, our scores are opposite, so we should be good to go. And my bottoms are lining, my sides are lining up perfect because I did that, okay? And then the other thing too is when you turn them to do the scores on the opposite side, if you keep those score lines in the same side, then if your scoreboard's off a little bit, which I have had scoreboards that be off, then your lines will actually line up better. I don't know why these things are off, but sometimes they are. I've had cutters that are off, all that stuff. All right, so then the next couple things we need to do. We need to do a little snip. So we're going to go to the bottom of our pocket. So you have the score for the bottom of the pocket, and then you have this score right here, this first score. We're going to take and snip about 1/2 inch into that score line, okay? So just like that, if you look at a piece of paper. So we're just going to just take and just snip. That's it. We're going to do the same thing on the other side. So just this first score past the pocket. Okay, just like that. Then we're going to turn this over, and you will need, let's grab a couple of clips, because what we're going to do is fold the bottom up, and there's that little snip that we made. We're going to tuck that first score of the side into that, so it'll look like so, okay? So you have it looking just like that. Both sides, we're going to do that. We're just going to fold that one tab into that slit, okay? Like so. Then what we're going to do is we're going to fold this down, okay? Fold this over, and then before we glue, we'll fold that over, and then that bottom piece goes back up like that. Okay, so I'm going to do it one more time on the table without moving it around so you can see. So we've got our little slits here. Okay, so we're gonna fold that up, and we're gonna tuck the sides in like so. So we've got a fold here, and we've got a fold here. Okay, so it should look like that now. Then we're gonna fold this whole bottom piece down. Fold your sides in like so, and then that folds up like that. So what we're going to do is we're going to put a little bit of glue here and here. We're going to use our clip. We're going to hold those together just so they set, okay? All right, while that's drying, we're going to take this and we're going to fold and burnish those lines. And that 1/8 inch is kind of a little pain, but you can be careful. Another hint and tip is if you have the spacers from Country Craft Creations, they're 1/8 inch. So you can use that to kind of help you start that fold so that you can burnish it. So that's kind of one of the things. All of them are 1/8 inch, so that can help you. Okay, so if you have trouble with that, that's a good thing to do. Okay, so that just is the pocket for our piece, okay? And then I did use my fancy corner punch, and I am going to corner punch this. This part here, this short piece, is going to end up being the flap to the pocket. And this will open opposite direction of the other one. So, for example, this one opens to the left, so the one over here will open to the right. Okay, make it easy to get everything in, okay? So then this piece here, once this is glued, we'll get this out of the way. So this piece is going to go inside of that and fold over and create that flap, okay? So what I'm gonna do is just slide that down in there. Now, if you do need to take off a little sliver, you can, but it should just pop all the way down in there and have all of these tabs on the back, okay? And that will create your pocket with a nice covered tabs on the inside and then your flap, okay? So the next thing that we need to do is add our ribbon, okay? And the ribbon is just gonna go, the envelope, or the envelope's going to open like this. We're gonna put a piece of ribbon here and then a piece of ribbon behind, and then it'll tie here. So we'll grab our seam binding and our ruler, and this pocket is 5 tall, so we're going to center that 2.5 from the center, and we're going to grab our cute little ribbon, and I want it to go off this direction. All right, so then I'm just going to get my fingers to work, which is generally hard to do. And then I'm going to flip it over, and we're going to put one here off the bottom, okay? Like so. Like so. This is all going to get glued down as well, so we're going to secure that all very well, okay? And then that's it. That's your pocket, okay? So everything is pushed in, tucked in, flap is on, ribbon's on, everything's good. So then we're going to grab our piece, and I'm going to double check. 3/4. That's what I remembered. I want to make sure that I do that. So this pocket will glue 3/4 inch in from the edge of your book and 3/4 of an inch in from the side, okay? And then that's going to center that really nicely, okay? So just make sure everything is pushed in, all of your tabs here. I'm going to take this off, and I'm going to put glue all over the back of this. Just get it in camera so you can see. Right there. And because I used the pattern that I used, I can use that to help me line things up too. So that's kind of cool. And then I'm just going to press that all down. Go inside. Okay, there we have it. All right. So that is how I made the pocket. The closure will be secured down here at the bottom underneath all of that pocket piece on all that cardstock, so it'll be nice and secure. Then I have, excuse me. Oh, did I cut that wrong? I did. Oh, well, you guys, I goofed that up. I cut that wrong. I'm going to need to fix that. So there you go. There's another piece I need to fix. But I have this, and then you just cover this with pattern paper, so I will fix that later. But yeah, boy, I am on a roll today, aren't I? But that was kind of my idea, so I hope I have enough of this. We'll see what happens. You guys will have seen what I've done in the walkthrough. So there's that, pattern paper for that. And then here is the piece that I did cut out of that pattern paper, so you can see that's the back of this. One sheet of this, I cut out all these pieces, and the other sheet I used for pattern papers. So this will go into the pocket as an ephemera piece. Okay, so that is the end of my tutorial. This will close together with a bow here. And, oh, I know what I was going to do. I was going to show you real quick the spine. Let's do that real quick, and then I will be done with this, and that is the end of the tutorial. So the spine. So I was really trying to figure out what fun thing I could do with the spine, and so I decided that I was going to use the rest of this ribbon because I just could not resist that ribbon. And I tied a big bow, and then on the back side of that bow, I looped the remaining piece of this 1/8 inch and some more seam binding, just looped it through the back of that, and then I hot glued it on here. So I did not use any pattern paper on here. I just used the mirror card and the green that matched the matting, and then I used the bow. So that's what I did. Now let me show you. Let me grab a piece of ribbon. This is a scrap piece of ribbon. I'll show you how to do one of those bows. It's really super easy. Basically what you do is you leave your tail here, and then you loop it around, depending on how big you want your bow. You loop it around your fingers, okay? So I have my tail down here. Go around your fingers. That would be 1 loop. This would be 2 loops, okay? And then I'm going to cut it off. I'm going to try to give myself a little bit of slack here, because you do need enough to be able to tie the knot, okay? So then this would be 2 loops. You can see that there's 2 loops around. So you take this bottom one that we just cut off, and you go right through the middle and loop it around. And then where this loops, what you want to do is put this around and under that loop, okay? So essentially, what did I do? I went around my finger. You don't want to go around your finger. Let's try this again. I'm going to do 2 fingers this time, just because it's going to be less fingers in my way. So what you want to do is take your ribbon, loop it around your fingers once for 1 loop, twice for 2 loops. Once you get down to here, this is where you take the bottom and you put it right through the middle. Then what you're going to want to do is put this around and then go up through that little piece that wrapped around, and then just pull. Pull it tight, and then you could take your fingers out, and then that's where you can fiddle with it, make it, you know, fluffed as much as you want. But that's how I did that bow. Now, obviously, this is different ribbon. It's a little bit stiffer than the other one, but you just have to play with it and make it what you want, okay? And so then once I did that, then I, again, through the back, so right through here, I took a needle and thread and I just kind of looped it through that knot and let them hang, and then glued it all down with my hot glue gun. And that's how I did that. But anyways, that's going to glue right here, and I just think that's going to be a really pretty addition to the book. I just had to use that ribbon somehow, and I didn't quite have enough to tie it from top to bottom. So then I thought, well, this would be really pretty. I just really liked it. So let me know what you think. All right, that's the end of my tutorial. This is Photoplay's Travel Junk. This is the project for Country Craft Creations for the May Design Team project, and I really hope you like it. This is going to be a fantastic journal, and it has lots and lots of room to hold photos, to do things like itineraries, to-do lists, journaling, all that stuff. So it's kind of like almost like a combination of a planner, an album, and maybe even a junk journal at the same time. So lots of fun things, and I think you're going to like it. So thanks for watching. Have a great day, and I will see you again soon. All right, take care. Bye-bye.